The camera phone trembled in Maya's steady hands as she watched the police officer's face contort with rage. "I said step back," Officer Karen Morrison barked, her voice cutting through the humid August air like a blade. "You people think you can just waltz into a crime scene because you wave some fake press card around?" Maya Chen had been holding her press credentials for the past 5 minutes, watching this officer ignore them completely. The yellow police tape fluttered behind Karen's broad shoulders, marking the boundary of what would become the biggest story of Maya's career, if she could get past this roadblock. "Ma'am, I'm with the City Herald," Maya said, her voice calm, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I have every right to be here covering this story." The words came out measured, professional. She'd been doing this for 8 years, since graduating from Columbia. She knew the law, knew her rights, knew exactly how far she could push. Karen stepped closer, close enough that Maya could smell the stale coffee on her breath, see the network of broken capillaries across her nose. "I don't care if you're with the New York Times. This is a restricted area, and I'm ordering you to move along." Her hand moved to her holster, fingers drumming against the leather. "Before I decide you're interfering with official police business." The morning had started like any other Thursday for Maya. Coffee at 6:30, quick scan of overnight police reports, then straight to the newsroom where the police scanner crackled with routine traffic stops and domestic disputes. She'd been reviewing her notes on the city budget hearings when the call came in. Multiple units responding to Heritage Boulevard. Possible homicide? All hands on deck. Maya had grabbed her phone, recorder, and press badge without thinking twice. Heritage Boulevard cut through the heart of the city's most affluent neighborhood, where million-dollar homes sat behind wrought iron gates. Homicides didn't happen there. When they did, it meant front-page news. The crime scene sprawled across 3 properties. Emergency vehicles parked at angles that suggested urgency. Maya had parked 2 blocks away and walked, noting the growing crowd of neighbors peering over hedges and through curtained windows. The victim was Dr. Patricia Whitmore, according to the radio chatter she'd intercepted. Prominent surgeon, city council candidate, pillar of the community. Maya had approached the perimeter like always. Credentials ready, professional smile in place. She'd worked crime scenes with dozens of officers over the years. Most recognized her by now, nodded her through with barely a glance. But Karen Morrison was new, her uniform crisp and her badge still gleaming. "Listen carefully," Karen said now, taking another step forward. Maya held her ground, though every instinct screamed at her to retreat. "I'm going to count to 3. If you're not gone by then, I'm placing you under arrest for obstruction." Her radio crackled, but she ignored it. 1. Maya's phone was still recording. She kept it low, angled to catch Karen's face as the officer's cheeks flushed red with anger. Behind the police line, she could see Detective Rodriguez setting up the crime scene tape. He'd worked with Maya on dozens of stories. Always professional, always respectful of her role. "Ma'am, I'm simply doing my job," Maya said. "The public has a right to know what happened here. Dr. Whitmore was a public figure, and this is clearly a matter of public interest." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I'm not asking to contaminate the scene. I just need to speak with the lead detective for a brief statement." 2. Karen's voice had dropped to a whisper, but it carried all the menace of a shout. Her hand was fully on her weapon now, though she hadn't drawn it yet. "You want to test me because I've had enough of your attitude." The crowd was growing. Maya could see faces in windows. People with phones pointed in their direction. Someone was live streaming on Instagram, the little red dot pulsing in the corner of their screen. What had started as a routine crime scene interaction was becoming something else entirely. "I don't have an attitude," Maya replied, keeping her voice level. I have a job to do, just like you do. The difference is, my job is protected by the First Amendment. She held up her credentials again, the laminated card catching the morning sunlight. Maya Chen, City Herald. I've been covering this beat for 8 years. Karen snatched the credentials from Maya's hand, so fast it left a paper cut across her thumb. The officer examined the card with theatrical skepticism, holding it up to the light, as if checking for forgeries. These look fake to me, she announced, loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. Real reporters don't look like you. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the surge of anger she'd learned to channel into her work. She'd heard variations of this her entire career. Real reporters, real Americans, real professionals. Always the same subtext, always the same dismissal. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Maya asked, though she knew the answer. Her phone was still recording, capturing every word, every facial expression. This was news now, whether Karen realized it or not. You know exactly what it means, Karen shot back, crushing the press badge in her fist. Troublemakers with fake credentials, always trying to stir up problems where there aren't any. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. I've dealt with your type before. Maya's Twitter notifications were going crazy. Someone in the crowd had already posted a video clip, tagged her handle, added hashtags that were starting to trend. She could see the retweets climbing in real time. This was spiraling beyond a simple press access dispute. My type, Maya repeated, loud enough for her phone's microphone to catch clearly. What type would that be? Officer Morrison. She'd read the nameplate while Karen was examining her credentials, filed it away for later, for the story that was writing itself. Karen's face went from red to purple. She grabbed for Maya's phone, but Maya was faster, pulling it back just out of reach. I'm confiscating that device as evidence, Karen declared. You're recording without permission, violating privacy laws. This is a public street, Maya replied, her journalism training kicking in automatically. I have every right to record here, and you're a public official performing public duties. There's no expectation of privacy. She took a step back, keeping the phone at chest level. Unless you're planning to violate my civil rights on camera. The crowd had tripled in size. Maya could see at least 6 people recording now, phones held high above heads. Someone was shouting questions from across the street, asking what was happening, why the reporter wasn't being allowed through. The energy was shifting, becoming electric with tension. Detective Rodriguez appeared at Karen's shoulder, his face troubled. Morrison, what's the situation here? He nodded at Maya professionally. Ms. Chen, good morning. I assume you're here about the Whitmore case. She's not authorized to be here. Karen interrupted before Maya could respond. Fake credentials, suspicious behavior, interfering with the investigation. Her hand went back to her weapon. I was about to place her under arrest. Rodriguez's eyebrows shot up. He'd worked with Maya for years, knew her reputation, knew her credentials were legitimate. Maya's press card is current, he said carefully. She's been covering this beat since before you joined the force. His radio crackled with chatter about backup units, crowd control, something about the mayor's office calling. I don't care how long she's been doing whatever it is she does. Karen snapped. She's trespassing on a crime scene, and I'm the officer in charge of this perimeter. She grabbed for Maya's phone again, this time managing to knock it from her hands. The device skittered across the asphalt, screen cracking against the curb. The crowd gasped. Maya dove for her phone, but Karen stepped on it, grinding her boot heel into the already damaged screen. Oops, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Accidents happen when people don't follow instructions. Maya stared at the destroyed phone, 8 years of contacts and stories, and carefully cultivated sources reduced to plastic shards and circuit boards. Her backup recorder was still running in her jacket pocket, but the visual documentation was gone. The live stream had ended when the phone hit the pavement. "You just destroyed private property," Maya said, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. In front of dozens of witnesses, she gestured to the crowd, which had grown silent and tense. "I hope it was worth it." Karen shrugged. "Sue me." She turned to Rodriguez. "I want her in handcuffs. Obstruction. Interfering with an investigation. Trespassing. Book her, and let the lawyers sort it out later." Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. He'd worked enough cases to know when a situation was about to explode. "Karen, maybe we should call the sergeant. Get some guidance here. This is getting complicated." "Nothing complicated about it," Karen replied. She pulled out her handcuffs, metal clicking as she opened them. "Turn around," she ordered Maya. "Hands behind your back." Maya didn't move. She'd covered enough stories about police overreach to know her rights, to understand the dangers of escalation, but she also knew the importance of the story behind the police tape, the questions that needed answers, the public's right to know what had happened to Dr. Whitmore. "I'm not resisting," Maya said clearly. Speaking to the cameras she knew were still recording from the crowd. "I'm a credentialed journalist trying to do my job. I have not broken any laws, threatened anyone, or interfered with this investigation in any way." She looked directly at Karen. "If you arrest me, you're violating my First Amendment rights." The sound of screeching tires cut through the tension. A black sedan pulled up to the police line, emergency lights flashing from the dashboard. Maya recognized the license plate immediately. City Hall plates. Official business. Mayor Elizabeth Santos stepped out of the car, her face a mask of controlled fury. She was supposed to be in the governor's mansion this morning. Maya knew from her schedule. The fact that she was here meant someone had called her, pulled her from an important meeting to deal with whatever was happening on Heritage Boulevard. "What in God's name is going on here?" the mayor demanded, striding toward the confrontation. Her heels clicked against the asphalt with sharp precision. "I just got off the phone with 3 different news directors asking why my press secretary is being harassed at a crime scene." Karen's face went white. The handcuffs slipped from her fingers, clattering to the ground. "You're what?" Maya closed her eyes for just a moment, feeling the weight of revelation settle over the scene. She'd been trying to keep her 2 roles separate, had specifically asked the mayor's office not to publicize her dual position until after the election. Working as both a journalist and the mayor's press secretary was a careful balancing act, one that required absolute transparency and ethical boundaries. "Maya Chen is my press secretary," Mayor Santos announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent crowd. "She's also one of the most respected journalists in this city. She has every right to be here, and she has my full authorization to report on this story." The mayor's eyes found Karen's face. "Officer Morrison, is it?" Karen nodded mutely, looking like she might be sick. "Officer Morrison, you've just spent the last 20 minutes harassing a member of my administration, destroying her property, and threatening to arrest her for doing her job." The mayor's voice could have cut glass. "Would you care to explain your reasoning?" The crowd pressed closer, phones held high, everyone trying to capture the moment. Maya could see the viral video being born in real time, could imagine the headlines already writing themselves. This wasn't just about press freedom anymore. This was about power, prejudice, and the courage to stand up to both. Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Her earlier confidence had evaporated completely, leaving behind a woman who suddenly understood the magnitude of her mistake. She looked at Maya's destroyed phone. at the crowd of witnesses, at the mayor's furious expression. She didn't. The credentials looked. Karen stammered, her face cycling through colors like a traffic light. I was just doing my job. Your job is to secure a crime scene, not to harass journalists. The mayor replied sharply. Maya has been covering police matters in this city since before you graduated from the academy. Her credentials are impeccable. Her reputation is spotless. And her right to be here is absolute. She paused, letting the words sink in. Unless you have some other reason for treating her differently than you would any other reporter. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Everyone present knew what the mayor was really asking, what the subtext had been throughout the entire confrontation. Maya had felt it from the first moment Karen had looked at her, had recognized the familiar pattern of dismissal and suspicion. I treat all reporters the same, Karen said weakly, but her voice lacked conviction. The lie was transparent, contradicted by 20 minutes of recorded evidence. Do you? The mayor asked. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Because I'm looking at a live stream right now, where you told Ms. Chen that real reporters don't look like her. Would you care to clarify what you meant by that statement? Maya watched Karen's face crumble as the full implications hit her. This wasn't going away. This wasn't something that could be explained away or buried in a report. This was public, recorded, viral. This was career-ending. Detective Rodriguez cleared his throat. Ma'am, perhaps we should continue this conversation at the station, away from the cameras. He gestured helplessly at the crowd, which had grown to include local news crews that had been dispatched to cover the original crime scene. No, the mayor said firmly. This conversation happens here, in public, where Officer Morrison's actions took place. She turned to face the cameras directly. The people of this city deserve to see how their public servants behave when they think no one important is watching. Maya felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with professional admiration. The mayor was handling this perfectly, turning a personal attack into a teaching moment about accountability and justice. This was leadership in action, the kind of principled stance that Maya had always admired about Elizabeth Santos. Officer Morrison, the mayor continued, you have violated multiple department policies today. You've harassed a credentialed journalist, destroyed private property, made discriminatory statements, and threatened false arrest. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had spent 20 years in public service. You've also violated the trust that the people of this city place in their police force. Karen looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route. But there was nowhere to go. No way to undo the last 30 minutes. The evidence was recorded, witnessed, already spreading across social media platforms faster than she could have imagined. I want to apologize, Karen said suddenly, the words tumbling out in a rush. I made a mistake. I let my emotions get the better of me, and I acted inappropriately. She looked directly at Maya for the first time since the confrontation began. I'm sorry for destroying your phone. I'm sorry for the things I said. I was wrong. Maya studied the officer's face, looking for sincerity beneath the obvious panic. An apology was a start, but it didn't erase the damage, didn't undo the humiliation, didn't address the deeper issues that had led to this moment. I appreciate the apology, Maya said carefully, but this isn't really about me. This is about press freedom, about equal treatment under the law, about the right of journalists to do their jobs without harassment or intimidation. She gestured to the crowd, to the cameras still recording every word. This is about making sure this doesn't happen to the next reporter who doesn't happen to have powerful friends. The mayor nodded approvingly. Maya's right. This incident raises serious questions about training, about bias, about accountability in our police force. She turned to address the cameras directly. I want the people of this city to know that discrimination has no place in our police department. Period. Detective Rodriguez's radio crackled with urgent chatter. Something about the chief of police being en route. About internal affairs opening an investigation. About news trucks backing up traffic for 6 blocks. What had started as a routine homicide investigation had become a media circus, with Karen Morrison at the center of it all. Officer Morrison, the mayor said, her voice gentler now, but still firm. You're going to be removed from field duty, pending a full investigation. You'll report to Internal Affairs this afternoon to give a complete statement about today's events. She paused. I suggest you use the time between now and then to think carefully about whether law enforcement is really the right career for you. Karen nodded miserably. Her earlier aggression had been replaced by something that looked like shock, as if she was just now understanding the consequences of her actions. She picked up her handcuffs from the ground, clipped them back to her belt with shaking fingers. Ma'am, she said to Maya, her voice barely above a whisper. I really am sorry. I'll pay for your phone, whatever it costs to replace it. She looked like she might cry. I never meant for this to happen. Maya felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger at the harassment, frustration at the delays to her reporting, but also something that might have been pity for a woman whose prejudices had just destroyed her career. The phone can be replaced, Maya said finally. The question is whether the attitudes that led to this can be changed. The mayor stepped forward, taking control of the situation again. Maya, I want you to write this story. All of it. Don't hold back because of your position with my administration. The public needs to know what happened here, needs to understand what journalists face when they're trying to do their jobs. She looked around at the crowd, at the cameras, at the police officers watching from behind the crime scene tape. Transparency is the only way forward. Maya nodded, already organizing the story in her head. This was bigger than a single incident, bigger than one officer's prejudice. This was about systemic issues, about power dynamics, about the ongoing struggle for press freedom in an era of increasing hostility toward journalists. Chief of Police Marcus Williams arrived just as Karen was being escorted to a patrol car for transport back to the station. He surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of someone who had spent 30 years dealing with crisis situations. His expression was grim as he approached the mayor. Madam Mayor, he said, extending his hand. I came as soon as I heard. This is a mess. He glanced at Maya apologetically. Ms. Chen, I owe you an apology on behalf of the entire department. This should never have happened. Maya appreciated the sentiment, but she was already thinking about the larger implications. Chief Williams, with respect, apologies are a good start, but they're not enough. This incident highlights some serious training gaps, some cultural issues that need to be addressed systematically. The chief nodded gravely. You're absolutely right. This is going to require a comprehensive review of our policies, our training procedures, our hiring practices. He looked around at the assembled crowd, the cameras, the reporters who were now interviewing witnesses. This is a wake-up call. Detective Rodriguez approached hesitantly. Excuse me, but we still have a crime scene to process. The Whitmore investigation. He trailed off, looking uncertain about how to proceed with so much chaos surrounding the perimeter. Maya realized that, in all the drama, she'd almost forgotten about the original story that had brought her here. Dr. Patricia Whitmore, the prominent surgeon whose death had made this confrontation possible. The real news was still waiting behind the police tape. Detective Rodriguez is right, she said. The public still needs to know what happened to Dr. Whitmore. That story is just as important as this one. She looked at her destroyed phone, at the crowd of onlookers, at the mayor who was fielding questions from newly arrived reporters. Maybe more important. The mayor checked her watch. Maya, I need to get back to the governor's meeting, but I want daily updates on both stories. The Whitmore investigation and the departmental review that's going to come out of today's incident. She paused at her car door. And Maya, thank you for handling this with such professionalism. You made us all proud today. As the mayor's car pulled away, Maya felt the weight of the morning settling on her shoulders. She had two major stories to write, a destroyed phone to replace, and a growing social media firestorm to navigate. But she also had something more valuable, a clear example of why press freedom mattered, why journalists couldn't be intimidated into silence. Detective Rodriguez approached with a borrowed phone. Maya, I know this morning didn't go as planned, but I've got some preliminary information about the Whitmore case if you're still interested. He glanced around at the dispersing crowd. Might be easier to talk now that things are calming down. Maya accepted the phone gratefully, already thinking about how to structure the dual story she needed to tell. The crime that had brought her here, and the crime that had been committed against press freedom. Both were news. Both deserved coverage. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out her recorder. The public has a right to know. As Detective Rodriguez began outlining the details of Dr. Whitmore's death, Maya could see the news trucks lined up along Heritage Boulevard, satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like technological flowers. Her Twitter mentions were still exploding. Journalists from across the country sharing the video of her confrontation with Officer Morrison. But the real story was just beginning. Over the next weeks, Maya's reporting would spark a citywide conversation about police accountability, press freedom, and the subtle ways that bias shaped interactions between law enforcement and the communities they served. The video of Karen Morrison destroying her phone would be viewed millions of times, becoming a symbol of the ongoing struggle for journalistic independence. Officer Morrison would resign from the police force before the internal investigation was completed, issuing a public apology that fell short of addressing the systemic issues her behavior had revealed. She would struggle to find new employment. Her name forever linked to the viral video that had ended her law enforcement career. The police department would implement new training programs, sensitivity workshops, and accountability measures designed to prevent similar incidents. Chief Williams would testify before the City Council about the need for cultural change within the force, acknowledging that Karen Morrison's behavior was symptomatic of deeper problems. Maya's dual role as journalist and press secretary would spark its own controversy, leading to new transparency requirements and ethical guidelines for public officials who maintained media connections. But her handling of the confrontation would be widely praised as an example of grace under pressure, of professional integrity in the face of discrimination. Dr. Patricia Whitmore's murder would be solved within a week. The perpetrator, a business partner who had been embezzling from their shared medical practice. But the bigger story would be the one that emerged from the police tape on Heritage Boulevard. The story of a journalist who refused to be silenced and a community that stood up for press freedom. As Maya began typing her story on the borrowed phone, she could feel the eyes of the remaining crowd watching her work. This was what journalism looked like in the digital age: immediate, transparent, accountable. Every word would be scrutinized, every fact checked, every source verified. But that was as it should be. The press served the public, and the public had a right to hold journalists to the highest standards, just as they had a right to hold police officers accountable, mayors responsible, and systems transparent. The story Maya wrote that afternoon would run on the front page of the City Herald the next morning, accompanied by frame grabs from the viral video and a comprehensive timeline of events. It would be picked up by national news outlets, shared across social media platforms, and discussed in journalism schools as an example of how to handle confrontation with authority. But for Maya, the real victory was simpler than all the attention and accolades. It was the knowledge that she had done her job, had served the public interest, had stood up for the principles that made journalism essential to democracy. She had been behind the police line in more ways than one, and she had found a way to cross it. The truth, as always, had found a way to break free. And, in the end, that was all that mattered. The rest was just noise. Just the temporary chaos that surrounded every moment when power was forced to account for itself in public. Maya smiled as she typed the final paragraphs of her story, the sun setting behind the crime scene tape that no longer seemed like a barrier. Tomorrow, there would be new stories, new challenges, new opportunities to serve the public interest. But today had been enough. Today had been a victory for everyone who believed that truth was worth fighting for, worth standing up for, worth protecting against those who would silence it. The police line remained, but Maya had already crossed it in the way that mattered most. She had brought the story to the people, and they had listened. In the end, that was what journalism was all about, bridging the gap between what happened and what the public knew, between power and accountability, between silence and truth. As the last news truck pulled away from Heritage Boulevard, Maya gathered her notes and prepared to head back to the newsroom. There was still work to do, stories to write, truth to uncover. But for the first time in hours, she felt something approaching peace. The line had been crossed, the story told, the truth set free. And tomorrow, because of what had happened today, it would be a little bit harder for anyone to stop the next journalist from doing their job. That was progress. That was victory. That was what made all the confrontation, all the harassment, all the broken phones worth it in the end. The truth had found its way past every barrier, over every line, through every attempt to silence it. And Maya Chen, journalist and public servant, had been the one to make sure it reached the people who needed to hear it most. In a democracy, there was no higher calling than that.